Call me crazy, Steelers fans, but I think the Pittsburgh Steelers could shock the NFL world this year and win the AFC North Division Championship for the 2025-2026 NFL season. And today, I'm going to share my 5 reasons why I think the black and gold could upset the Baltimore Ravens, Cincinnati Bengals, and the lowly Cleveland Browns to take this division for the first time in quite a while. Before we get into the content today, get us started down there in the comment section by letting me know the percent chance that the Pittsburgh Steelers win the AFC North Division this season. Put it on a scale of 0, meaning there's no chance they win the division, to 100, meaning they're definitely winning the division. Let me know where you guys are at this point in the offseason by giving me a number down there in the comments section. So the first reason why I think the Steelers have a shot to win the AFC North this year is because King Henry himself, Derrick Henry, I think could be in line for some regression heading into this season. Now, you take a look at Derrick Henry's numbers last year. Awesome season last year with Baltimore, right? Like at age 31 to put up this kind of production, it's unprecedented. Over 300 carries, almost got to 2,000 yards for the second time in his career, 16 touchdowns, and of course, in the 2 late games versus the Steelers, absolutely dominated the black and gold defense, especially with T.J. Watt down with an ankle injury. But then you look at Derrick Henry, the last time that he had a season like that was back in 2020 when he led the league in rushing, actually under Arthur Smith as his OC there in Tennessee, had over 2,000 yards, the only time in his career that he did that, 17 touchdowns, 5.4 yards per carry, insane season for King Henry. And then the next season, not nearly as good. Dealt with injuries because of the wear and tear that his body took. The previous season in Tennessee didn't even get to 1,000 yards rushing. Touchdown number went down significantly. And look at the yards per carry number, guys. Went down over a yard in the yards per carry efficiency that 2021 season. That's when he was a younger man, let alone now when he's going to be going into his age 32 season. If you guys know anything about running backs, once they get to 30, man, it is a steep decline, at least historically in the National Football League. In fact, you look at Henry's going into his age 32 season, there has been a grand total of 0 running backs in the history of this league that have rushed for over 1,400 yards in a season at the age of 32 or higher. All right, so history is certainly not on the side of Derrick Henry here. I think that he could be in line for some regression here. And if that happens, if he gets injured, if he's not as good as he was last season, Baltimore's running back room behind him is actually pretty darn light. Like, they've got some nice pieces in there as secondary kind of options there in Baltimore, but if you need somebody to come in and take heavy snaps if Derrick Henry goes down with an injury, you really trust Justice Hill? Do you really trust Keaton Mitchell, those guys? I personally don't, and Lamar Jackson would have to really carry a lot of the load there if Derrick Henry regresses heavily or gets injured, both of which are probably likely heading into his age 32 season. The second reason why I think the Steelers have a shot, specifically over the Ravens, is because Lamar Jackson can't beat a healthy T.J. Watt. Now, you might be saying, but Jack, what about last year? The Ravens won the final 2 games against the Steelers, not only in the playoffs, but also late in the season. Guess what? T.J. Watt was dealing with a very painful and really limiting ankle injury in both of those games. And when T.J. Watt is healthy and he's playing against Lamar Jackson, Jackson's record versus the Pittsburgh Steelers is 1-4. And that one win came in 2019. He has 4 straight losses against T.J. Watt when he is healthy playing against the Steelers defense, all right? So you guys can take a look at his numbers playing against a healthy T.J. Watt versus playing an injured T.J. Watt, and they are absolutely stark differences, all right? When Watt is healthy and he is putting that pressure on Lamar Jackson, the completion percentage is almost 15 points less than when he's playing injured or when he's off the field. The yards per attempt number, over 2 yards less per attempt for Lamar Jackson. The touchdown percentage goes down dramatically. The interception percentage more than doubles. And the sack percentage is just absolutely crazy different right there when Watt is on the field versus when he's injured or when he's not on the field. So obviously, T.J. Watt's lack of presence on the field gives Lamar Jackson a bit more comfortability out there. And also last year, if you'll remember, it was Derrick Henry, not really Lamar Jackson, that was carving up the Steelers defense last year with the injured TJ Watt. The run defense was absolutely terrible for the black and gold in the kind of final stretch of the season last year, and going up against a big-bodied running back that wears you down like Derrick Henry, it was just too much for the Pittsburgh Steelers run defense to handle. So I think this year, especially with the way that I expect Derrick Henry to regress, I don't think Lamar is going to be able to hide behind Derrick Henry and his production. I think he had like 180 and 160 yards against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. Talking about Derrick Henry there in the final 2 games that they played the Steelers last year. I don't think that Lamar is just going to be able to have 20, a little bit over 20 pass attempts a game like he did in those 2 games. He's going to have to throw the ball like 40 times a game against the Steelers with a healthy TJ Watt, and I don't think that's going to work out well for Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. Will the Pittsburgh Steelers sweep the Baltimore Ravens this year? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section, and let me know what you guys think down there in the comments. So now let's talk about my third reason here, which surrounds the Cincinnati Bengals. And, a lot of people, on ESPN and all these national, media platforms or whatever will tell you that they think the Ravens will be first, and then they think the Bengals will be second, with the Steelers being third. I hear this every single year, and the Steelers always finish ahead of the Cincinnati Bengals. Why? Because the Bengals defense stinks, and it still stinks. Like, they haven't made a whole lot of improvements to this defense other than the theoretical improvement of getting rid of Lou Anarumo for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish defensive coordinator, who is an unproven NFL defensive coordinator coming over from college. And the reason why people love the Bengals, all right, is because they love Joe Burrow. And sure, Joe Burrow, granted, is a top 4 quarterback in the National Football League. He is awesome, but people assume because they have an elite quarterback that they must have an elite team. Well, last year, Joe Burrow put up MVP caliber numbers, all right? If the Bengals made the playoffs, he might have won league MVP. Almost 5,000 yards passing, over 70% completion percentage, 43 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. And then what happened with the Bengals, guys? They had like a 500 record, were 9-8, and they missed the playoffs entirely, despite Joe Burrow's heroic effort last year carrying that football team along with the other weapons that he has, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, the same kind of weapons that he has this year. They were still just 9-8, and they couldn't finish ahead of the Steelers, who had a bottom 10 offense in the National Football League. The reason for that, guys, is because the Bengals defense stinks. All right, you take a look at the numbers last year for the Pussycats, and you look at these numbers. They're bottom 10 in almost every single category. All right, some of the major categories that you look at: EPA per play, 27th; success rate, 30th; 26th in scoring defense, all right, 30th in red zone touchdown percentage given up. And then, you look at the moves that they made on defense. Are they really that much better from a roster perspective on that side of the ball this year? No, they are not. And then there's also the fact that they're currently in the middle of not 1, but 2 active contract disputes with their top 2 edge rushers, their first-round pick, Shamar Stewart, and their number 1 guy, an NFL sack leader last year, Trey Hendrickson, are both very disgruntled with the football team right now. And there's at least a possibility that at least one of these gentlemen will not be, suiting up for the Cincinnati Bengals heading into the 2025 season. And if that's the case, especially with Trey Hendrickson and the amount of production that he brings to the table, 17.5 sacks last year, led the NFL, and this defense was still as bad as it was. All those rankings in the mid-20s and low 20s when it comes to their team defensive stats. If they don't have Trey Hendrickson next year, guys, and they trade him away to, say, like the Detroit Lions or the Washington Commanders or some other team before the start of the season, this defense is going to be in a lot of trouble, and it's not going to matter how good Joe Burrow is, because their defense is going to be giving up so many points this year. So no, I do not think the Cincinnati Bengals are a Super Bowl contender, not until this defense can turn it around. And then we get to the Cleveland Browns, my fourth reason why I think the Steelers could win this division this year, and plain and simply, the Browns are the Browns. All right, you look at their quarterback situation right now. You want me to get excited about a geriatric Joe Flacco? You want me to get excited about Kenny freaking Pickett? What about Shadur Sanders, who's just caught speeding at over 100 miles per hour? Looks like he's a great decision maker, right? And then Dylan Gabriel, who's got the size of Kyler Murray and the arm strength of Tua Tagovailoa. terrible combination of physical attributes for a team playing in the wind, in the cold, and in the rain. All right, so the Browns don't have a quarterback this year. They just got rid of Nick Chubb. I don't think they're running. I like Quinshon Judkins, but I don't expect him to be able to carry an NFL offense in year one. This defense is okay, but they're not going to be fantastic. I think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the National Football League this year, so let's just leave the Browns at that. But, we've been talking about a lot about the other teams in the AFC North on today's video, the Ravens, the Bengals, and the Browns. But why are the Steelers the best team in this division, or why they could be the best team in this division? In my opinion, guys, this is the best Steelers team and the best Steelers roster that we have had in years, all right? You take a look at the roster compared to where they were in 2024. I think they have upgraded in every single aspect of their team this year, except for special teams, but that's because it's pretty much a wash. But even then, you could argue that getting Cameron Johnston back from injury is an upgrade for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year over Corliss Waitman. But the quarterback situation, Aaron Rodgers is better than either Russell Wilson or Justin Fields right now. The running back situation, I think Caleb Johnson is a better fit for this offense than Najee Harris was. All right, the receiving weapons, I think it's upgraded. DK Metcalf better than George Pickens, and I think they'll add another receiving weapon before camp as well. The blocking, I think, will be upgraded. Just getting Troy Fautano back from injury instantly upgrades this unit, and if Broderick Jones and Mason McCormick can take a step this year, it's a much better offensive line than it was last year. On the defensive line, you bring in a first-round pick, Derrick Harmon, to upgrade the depth of the defensive line. I think that unit is still really good. Inside linebacker, Peyton Wilson is going to take another step this year. I think that's an upgrade. Then secondary, you replace Dante Jackson and Cam Sutton with Darius Slay and Beanie Bishop Jr. I think their secondary is better than it was last year. So almost every single facet of this football team this year is better than it was in 2024. And it's been the best that it's been, in my opinion, in quite some time. And I think that this team this year with Aaron Rodgers and the different additions that they have made to this team this year, especially if they add another wide receiver like Amari Cooper before the start of training camp, this team is in the best place to have playoff success, wins in the playoffs since the Killer Bee era, all right, 2017. And you might be saying at home, but Jack, they didn't win a playoff game in 2017. They lost to Blake Bortles and the Jacksonville Jaguars at home that year. That's true, but the Steelers were certainly putting themselves in position for playoff success that year. I think it's going to be very similar with Aaron Rodgers, Arthur Smith, and the Pittsburgh Steelers this year in 2025. So is this statement true or false? Let me know down there in the comments section. This is the best Steelers roster since 2017. Type T if you think that's true, or type F if you think that's false. I think this statement is true, but let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. That'll be it for today's edition of Steelers Talk by Chat Sports. I hope I convinced you that the Pittsburgh Steelers at least have a chance to win the AFC North this year over the Baltimore Ravens. But make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already for more extensive Steelers coverage on this channel for free every single day.